Welcome back to Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ollie Hayes, and today I'm bringing the extra time match review for Liverpool 2, Everton 1. A tale of two halves, really, in the Merseyside derby on Saturday afternoon as Everton fell to a disappointing defeat in the Merseyside derby to the hands of Liverpool. So let's get straight into it, really, starting with my thoughts on the starting 11. And it was a strong lineup, in my opinion, close really to full strength. I think it was good to see James Garner back in midfield. Obviously, always positive to get players back from injury like Vitaly Mykolenko. Obviously, him sustaining an injury away with Ukraine on international duty. It was obviously disappointing not to see Merlin Roll involved in the squad at all. I think it was confirmed by David Moyes just before the game that he did pick up a knock in training. So I was maybe hoping that he'd maybe get a start if obviously Vitaly Mykolenko wasn't back fully fit. I was hoping that Merlin Roll would maybe start and it would obviously be James Garner at left back, but no, that didn't really materialise. And obviously Merlin Roll picked up a knock in training, so he was out of the squad. Obviously, I mean, it's probably our strongest 11 now, I think, very close to it. I think we're getting back to full strength now. Obviously, the omission of Jared Branthwaite is the one player that we really need to come back. I think it's really showing now in terms of defence that we do need him back. But we'll go into the first half now, and we were way too respectful for Liverpool in that first 10, 15 minutes. We gave them far too much of the ball, far too many opportunities, and that, the amount of respect that you pay a team in the top six, I think you can't do that these days because they will punish you. The amount of quality and the amount of money they've spent this summer, they have the squad to really hurt you early on in games. So the first goal, it's very avoidable in my opinion. Mo Salah loops a ball forward towards Ryan Gravenberch, who just chips one over Jordan Pickford into his far corner, and we find ourselves 1-0 down. We were caught ball watching, in my opinion. As I said before, it was really avoidable goal. I think it comes back to this respect aspect. If you're giving Liverpool too much respect and giving them too many chances, they're going to take one with the amount of quality they've got, and we gave them far too many, far too early on. And yeah, as I said before, Ryan Gravenberch finding Jordan Pickford's bottom right hand corner, and we found ourselves 1-0 down within 10 minutes, which, 1-0 down within 10 minutes is a massive mountain to climb at Anfield. And obviously, as the first half ticked on, conceded a pretty similar goal. Liverpool's goal through Hugo Hekatike was pretty similar. We were completely carved open, caught ball watching once again. And again, I felt like this one was pretty avoidable. I think if we mark our men and stop the forward pass coming through from midfield, it's a massively avoidable goal in my opinion. So we find ourselves 2-0 down within 30 minutes at Anfield, and you are fearing the worst, aren't you, unfortunately? If you look at our performances there in recent seasons and how we've got on in probably in the last 10, 15 years or so at Anfield, if you go 2-0 down within half an hour, more than likely you're going to be on the end of a really, really difficult result, maybe a 3-4-0 drubbing. But no, that being said, after that first half an hour, we did sort of settle into the game finally. We sort of calmed the crowd. Liverpool, obviously, the crowd were bouncing a little bit when they weren't 2-0 up, but apart from that, I didn't really hear a peep out of them, after that first half an hour. And as I said before, we did settle into the game a little bit, creating a few chances here and there. Kieran Dewsbury Hall having a really good chance at the Kop end, which he couldn't find the back of the net. Iliman Ndiaye also creating a few chances along with Jack Grealish. So we were settling into the game a little bit and creating a few chances here and there. But obviously, as we ticked over into half time, there was there was going to be some harsh words, I think, at half time from David Moyes in that team talk. And coming out to the second half, obviously, as we all know, Beto was taken off at half time for Tieno Barry. I think that was very telling of his first half performance. I thought Beto had a really poor game yesterday. I think, it's not for the want of trying. I think he does put himself about and he really does try to create chances and get on the end of crosses and things like that. But I think, once again, I think he just looks shot of all confidence in an Everton shirt. And we've seen it so many times with Beto. He goes through these spells of being completely shot of confidence in an Everton shirt. And I think we're in one of these spells once again. So fingers crossed he can put it behind him, because I do think there is a player in there. Everyone who watches my stuff knows that I do quite like to back Beto. I think there's, I was always calling for him to have a consistent run in the team, but maybe a spell out of the team will do him a little bit of good now, just for him to really get that fire in his belly and try and displace Tieno Barry. But yeah, as I said before, Tieno Barry coming on at half time. And I think the second half, we picked up where we left off really in that first half. I thought we were massively on top for the final 15 minutes of the first half. And we picked up where we left off straight after the break. And massively on top, massively on the front foot, creating chances, pressing like we probably should have done from the first minute rather than the 45th minute. So yeah, again, there's probably lessons to be learnt there, but I think the fact that we did bed in and settled down, I think credit to Moyes for changing the tactics slightly. But on the 58th minute, from obviously a few flurry of chances early in that first half, a great cross from Jack Grealish found Iliman Ndiaye at the back post, who laid it off to Idrissa Gana Gueye, who found the net with a fantastic finish with his right foot, and everyone was probably saying, you know, why doesn't he do this more often when he's on the edge of the box? And 9 times out of 10, it ends up in Rose Ed. But no, he found the back of the net, and it was a fantastic finish, and it gave us a great platform to try and get that equaliser then. And I think a lot of Evertonians maybe have looked at that and gone, Liverpool have been struggling with Leeds recently. They obviously let a lead slip to Atletico Madrid in midweek, so we're looking at that going, we've got a real opportunity to get back in this game now. And we didn't stop there. I thought we were fantastic. It was massively game on. We were fantastic in going forward, setting that press. But ultimately, really, it was all just a little bit too much, and we couldn't really carve that gilt edge chance that I was really hoping we would do. Sort of that one-on-one where you have to score and you've given yourself a great chance to equalize the game. We didn't really have a chance like that. So ultimately, it was where it finished really in the Merseyside derby, and we ended up on a pretty unfortunate 2-1 defeat to the hands of Liverpool, which I don't think we deserved too much, to be honest. I don't think we deserved to leave Anfield with no points at all. I think a point was probably a fair reflection of the game, but there's a few key points to note really about the game itself. There's a few key points which we need to go into, and we've got to start with that refereeing performance because once again, listen, I said it last week as well after the Aston Villa game. I thought the Aston Villa referee had a really poor afternoon, but Darren England in the middle of the park yesterday, I thought he was really, really poor. There was a lot of decisions that were going Liverpool's way, and the same sort of tackles or 50-50s or duels weren't going Everton's way. We weren't getting the sort of same treatment from the referee. And I think a lot of people are starting to pick up on it now, and including David Moyes and Jack Grealish. They were absolutely incensed at the final whistle. Jack Grealish having to be dragged away by Jordan Pickford and actually receiving a yellow card for remonstrating with the referee. And then, David Moyes as well, coming over to the referee to try and have a chat, and the referee ushering him away. I think it's people, especially at Everton, people are recognising now that we're not getting the same treatment from referees. And one other talking point that we have to talk about is the booking of Kane and Dewsbury Hall. I think he's even put on his Instagram story this morning saying, "Let's not talk about that yellow card," because I've just been watching the Aston Villa Sunderland game as well, and Morgan Rogers taking a free kick quickly. The referee pulls it back, but there's no booking for him. But yet Kane and Dewsbury Hall in a Merseyside derby is he's been told that he's taken a free kick too quickly and he's actually been booked for it. So I've never seen that before. I'm not sure when that rule came in, but it'd be interesting to see if PGMOL come out with anything, in midweek trying to justify that decision, because I thought it was a massively strange one. And then also as well with the refereeing performance, only 3 minutes at a time. I read something this morning that there's been 810 Premier League games since there was the last 3 minutes at a time in a second half of a match, which is absolutely astonishing for me. I think that's something that we've not seen so long. They've wanted to really clamp down on time wasting and increase the length of game so there's more in play time. And the fact that we've seen 3 minutes added time for a game that had a lot of stoppages, there was a goal, there was a lot of substitutions, there was a couple of injuries. So the fact that that has actually occurred and there's been 3 minutes added time, I thought was absolutely astounding for me. But yeah, again, that's just where we are at with referees at the moment. We seem to be not getting the rub of the green. So fingers crossed we can improve on that in the coming weeks, and especially with the Carabao Cup game coming up in midweek, we want to be getting through in that. So fingers crossed we get the rub of the green and maybe a couple of decisions in that one. But finally, now we'll just talk about my standout performers, and the first one I have to talk about is Jack Grealish. I thought he was absolutely fantastic from start to finish. I think it was Darren Fletcher and Ali McCoist on TNT Sports who were going to give him the man of the match, but obviously he was on the losing side. And I think Ali McCoist even said that he wanted to give it to Jack Grealish, but he doesn't give it to players on the losing side. So that just shows you how good Jack Grealish was actually, in terms of chance creation and really getting crosses into the box. He was absolutely instrumental in getting that just a gay goal. And then obviously, just trying to create chances in that second half. He was really unlucky not to create a few more gilt edge chances that I was talking about earlier. But yeah, for me, Jack Grealish was absolutely fantastic. Maybe not in the first half an hour, but there was I could probably name every single player that wasn't fantastic in that first half an hour. But no, he improved his performance for the second half of the first half, and then obviously the entirety of the second half, Jack Grealish. So he was one of my stand-up performers. And then also Tierno Barry coming off the bench, I thought he was pretty decent, making a few clever runs here and there, really creating chances, creating space for a lot of other players. I think he maybe complements the three in behind him of Grealish and Jai and Dewsbury Hall. I think he complements them a little bit better than Beto does, just because he's a little bit more clever in terms of how he runs, how he creates his own chances, creates his own space. So definitely more to come from Tierno Barry. I think it was a really positive 45 minutes from him, and I'd probably like to see him get a little bit of more of a run in the team now, and maybe give Beto a little bit of a rest. And as I said earlier in the video, a little bit more fire in his belly to really displace Tierno Barry, because I do think Competition for places is really good, and Tieno Barry has earned the right to now start from minute one. Maybe in the Carabao Cup, but also next weekend on the Monday Night Football against West Ham at Hill Dickinson Stadium. But that is it really for my thoughts on Liverpool 2, Everton 1 in the Merseyside derby. Obviously a disappointing one, always a disappointing one to lose a Merseyside derby to the hands of them lot over the park. But no, I think there's a lot of positives to take from that performance, especially the second half performance. If we play that 9 times out of 10, we're going to get points on the board. So keep the faith, Blues. I think we're going to be okay. Obviously it's never nice losing a derby game, but keep the faith. We're going to get there. But that is all from me today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about the performance at Anfield. But that is all from me today. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.